Welcome, everybody, once again to another episode of Writers and Fighters, a podcast. I'm your host, AJ Ortega, and each and every week on this show, I interview somebody in the writing world or somebody in the fighting world. This is episode 34, and I interview Christian Schmidt. He's a ring announcer for boxing, MMA, and pro wrestling. This is a really exciting episode for me. I won't do much of an intro. Christian's a friend of mine. We go way back. I met him through the pro wrestling world in Texas. I noticed he was pretty serious about being a ring announcer. He saw I was pretty serious about being a pro wrestling referee, that we liked what we did, and that we respected the position that we had. And so we gravitated in that regard. And then we got close in terms of like a friendship, and I found out he was a big boxing fan. And that was really cool because it's not often I find somebody that is more into boxing than I am. And he's definitely one of them. And so we get there. We talk about the announcing stuff, of course, how he got into it, how he preps to announce, what the difference is between announcing for boxing, MMA, and pro wrestling. But then we eventually do get into current boxing stuff. And so I don't want to belabor the point. I want to get right into the interview. And so, without further ado, this is my interview with Christian Schmidt, professional ring announcer for boxing, MMA, and pro wrestling. Enjoy. All right, and I am sitting here on Zoom with ring announcer Christian Schmidt, calling in from Texas, Laredo, Texas. Christian, how you been, buddy?
How you doing, AJ? I just want to say thanks so much for having me on. You do a great job, as always. I knew when you told me that you were going to be doing this, it was going to be a big success. So I'm just excited to be on your show, man. Thanks a lot.
No, I appreciate it. So you are a ring announcer, and you do this for several types of combat sports and events and in all sorts of places. So maybe tell the audience a little bit about who you are in terms of that gig that you got and why you're on this show.
Well, mainly what I focus on is professional boxing and professional MMA and occasionally professional wrestling, not so much anymore. But, I mean, it doesn't mean I don't love it. But I've been, leaning more towards, the money. And that's in boxing and MMA. And then times as well, believe it or not, I announced women's tackle football for a league in South Central Texas area. And I have a lot of fun doing that when I can. But my primary focus is professional boxing and mixed martial arts.
Great. And so I actually met you through the professional wrestling world there, and I've seen you do gigs like that. But yeah, I have noticed that you've been doing a whole lot of boxing stuff lately. And we'll get into all that and the differentiation between all the different kinds of gigs you get. But how did you end up announcing? Because I think I have a recollection that you had a background in like television or radio or both. So I'm curious, like, how did you end up announcing, and which of these things came first?
It was about 20 years ago. I used to host a TV show in San Antonio called The Edge. It was a legit cable TV show. We were having problems having people getting excited about it. We were limited with our programming because it was Catholic television. And I, huge wrestling fan. It was right after Shawn Michaels wrestled in WrestleMania 14, and he got hurt really bad. His back was damaged really bad. And he decided to start a school called the Shawn Michaels Wrestling Academy, located on the west side of San Antonio on Martin Street. Very, very, very well known in the professional wrestling world. And I was going to college at Texas Lutheran University at the time. We had an autograph signing in Seguin at the Fiesta Ballroom, and I showed up. I pitched the idea to him, and he's like, "Yeah, I'll do it. Get fight my lawyer Skip. He's around here somewhere. He's a ball guy." So I talked to Skip, and I pitched it to him, and we got it all set up. I showed up at the gym, did an interview with him. I was so excited because I'm a huge Shawn Michaels mark. And after that, the video played, and it was our most popular episode, and some of the students, some of the wrestlers started watching it. And a gentleman named Ray the Voice, who I just got to see about 3 weeks ago in Alabama, we got to be friends by me attending the events, and he just said, "Hey, do you want to come aboard?" I just was excited to be with the guys. I mean, I felt like I got an invitation to hang with the cool kids. And in time, meeting other people, it was just like by default, "Hey, do you want to announce?" Never done it, but then it started like that, and kind of evolved from there. I mean, it's kind of a similar story. A lot of ring announcers have something similar where it's like you don't set out to do it, but it's like you're at an event, somebody said, "Hey, we don't have a ring announcer. Can you try it?" And
right place, right time. Yeah.
Yeah. Timing is everything. I came and went in the pro wrestling world. It was very hard to get a pro MMA or boxing gig. Very hard until finally I got my first one in Laredo, Texas in September of 2014. That was pro boxing the first time I announced with AAA Promotions, Vito Martinez. I was blessed to have that. And it started small, and then it was like 2 to 3 gigs a year just in Laredo or Corpus Christi, and then in the Valley, and then it started to slowly grow from there. And then I got my big break in December of 2018 when USA Boxing asked me to do the Olympic Trials 1, where I met somebody, got to hang out with my boy AJ in Salt Lake City, which was just awesome. And then that really, I think, installed a confidence in me
right.
to branch out and start talking to other promoters and promotions. And it's been a heck of a ride since then, and don't plan on stopping, and it's going to be bigger and bigger.
Yeah. I remember you coming to visit for the USA Boxing up here in Salt Lake City a couple years ago. We'll get to that. I want to hear a little bit more about your first few gigs. And so how did it go at first? And again, getting the reps in, we get better and you kind of adjust and make your changes. How was that getting prepped at the beginning to announce versus your kind of routine to get ready to prep for an event and announce now?
Well, as odd as it sounds, ring announcing is more complex. There's more than meets the eye than somebody would think, including myself when I first started. It's not just standing up there and reading off a card.
Right.
That's what I thought it was for quite some time. And, the majority of the time when you really learn, it's outside the ring. And to answer your question as far as prep goes, when I prep and I get a gig, I try to get as much information from the promoter as I can. I'll be adding guys or girls on Facebook, familiar with where they're from, how to pronounce their cities, what their nickname is, what gym they come from, to the point of where I'll show up at the weigh-ins. I can't go to all of them if the promoter doesn't allow, but I prefer to.
Right.
And I mean, just the way technology is, after the weigh-ins, I'll literally put my phone up and say, "Please tell me your name, nickname if you have one, what gym you represent, and where you're from," and then I get the proper pronunciations. So that night, I go to the hotel. I just sit in the lobby just in case somebody comes in and out, which every single time somebody from the event will come in and I'll get to say, "Hey, what's up? Where you from?"
Fill in some blanks, yeah.
I'll learn something. And then after that, late at night, what I do is with my cue cards, I will walk around the hotel and I will just repeat, "The following contest is scheduled for 6 rounds set to take place in the welterweight division. Introducing first, fighting out of the red corner," and bam.
Right.
Or repeat. The reason why I do that is there's a very big difference between somebody who's up there reading it for the first time. You can tell, fighting out of the red corner, weighing in at 140, then fighting out of the red corner, weighing in at 140 pounds from Tuscaloosa, Alabama, and
right.
You're more comfortable with it, and it sounds more natural, more presentable, and more professional. And that's what I do the night before. I will walk around, just people see me. There's a crazy person.
Right.
And he's just talking and talking and talking, and I'll just keep repeating that to where, I know it like that if I have to. So yeah, that's what goes into my prep.
No, I think that's awesome, that making your your not just your brain, but your mouth and your tongue and the way your mouth moves and enunciates things. Because in the world of boxing, MMA, pro wrestling, you're going to come into some names you're not familiar with, right?
Yeah.
How do I pronounce that, right? And yeah, I think that's a really good. Yeah, I think it's a really good practice, man. I like that routine. And so in this prep, and we heard a little bit of your announcer voice and stuff. You have what I can tell, like you have your catchphrase, your Christian Schmidt ring announcer thing, which is something about the action in the main attraction, right? And so how do you deliver that last line when you get the crowd pumped for that main event?
Well, obviously, the most iconic announcer in the world, the GOAT, the greatest of all time, is Michael Buffett.
For sure.
And I mean, he could arguably be the most recognizable face in boxing. He's not even a boxer.
Agreed.
Everybody would when they start hearing that, when I say I'm a ring announcer, half the time the response is, "Oh, are you like that guy that goes, Rumble, ready to let's get ready." Well, when you watch the big events, you can see how much the crowd says it with them. Now, if you've seen the movie, Bohemian Rhapsody, there's a part in there where Brian May and they're having a meeting in the band where they talk about that boom, 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 and they're like, okay, we want to do something that our fans can do with us. And yeah, I mean, that song's iconic. And Michael Buffett, when he says it, everybody knows what it is, and they get to say it with them, and they love doing it. And ultimately, that plants in your brain. When you hear that phrase, you pay attention. And it goes along with his identity. I mean, I couldn't, even if I was a fan, if I heard that, I couldn't not pay attention. So I wanted to create something similar to where people could say with it, and I wanted it to rhyme. And I thought of so many different phrases, and it was like, well, that sounds too complex, or that sounds too common. And finally, the action and the main attraction. Bam. I want people to say it with me, and ultimately doing it once a night. And I have one other phrase that I use that they can get comfortable with, which obviously I'm not a TV star, but now with the internet and hearing me do that, maybe some people can hear it, or at least they're going to hear something presentable to where they're like, oh, this, get their heart pumping a little bit more. I do the action and the main attraction, and then the other one I do is tell everybody in the city, tell everybody in the town. And I'll look at both fighter and I'll say, it's about to go down. Introducing first. And I want to do something that makes it all the more special, and that adds to that feeling of, wow, I have to pay attention. So it was a bazillion different ones that I thought of. That doesn't sound good, or that sounds more like what he's trying to say, whatever. But I finally came up with those two, and I do the action and the co-main attraction for the co-main event, and then the one I just did, I do it for the main event.
No, yeah, that's good. That it creates this kind of Pavlovian response, right? Whenever we hear our favorite ring announcers, and there's a handful, right? There is Michael Buffer and Bruce Buffer. There was Jimmy Lennon and Jimmy Lennon Jr. and so on. You hear certain things and certain that make your brain get pumped, and like, okay, my heart starts beating a little bit faster because we know it's happening now, and it's also your signature, right? And again, and then this is how you're marketing yourself and getting gigs and things like that. I think that's great. And so maybe tell us a little bit about your perceptions of the differences between announcing for a pro boxing event, maybe an amateur boxing event, an MMA event, an indie wrestling gig. Like, how does that all change your approach? Clearly your routine is going to be similar, but do you got to get in a different mind frame?
Well, like at any wrestling show, it's much more casual.
Yeah, sure.
It's much more laid back. Like in Texas, it's not state sanctioned.
Right.
Where, I mean, you can be more relaxed. It's more fun. You can be silly. There's more humor involved. You don't have to be on your P's and Q's as much. Whereas pro boxing and pro MMA, I mean, those are state sanctioned where they have high level security. They have doctors ringside, cage side. You have to be permitted by the state of Texas to be in certain areas of the building where, pro wrestling, you do not.
Right.
It's much more tense for boxing and MMA. You have to be on your game.
Right.
You have to be focused. Amateur, it's also quite rigid, but maybe not as much because it's usually kids. And you sit on the side of the ring because there's usually, when you do an amateur show, there's 20, 30, 40, 50 fights. And you just can't get up and get down because it would be too time consuming.
Sure.
They're fun, but, any ring announcer is going to tell you that the professional aspect is better. It's just more significant. You just feel it's more exciting. But I mean, it's fun to do the amateurs as well and see the kids living out their dreams and advancing with them.
Yeah, speaking of the amateurs, that USA Boxing gig here in Salt Lake where I'm at, we got to hang out and that was great. And again, there's just so many fights. There's 3 rings. It was a great event. It was just so cool to just observe it. Really cool to see that you were attached to it. So many fights, 3 rings at the same time. And I remember it being such a long gig and a couple days and stuff. And like you were like losing your voice at a certain point and stuff like this. Tell me about that gig, because again, instead of 5-6 fights you're announcing, it was nonstop, dude. You were hours and hours.
It was like 800.
800 fights, Jesus.
I could remember getting there and seeing 4 rings and thinking, what did I get myself into? It was unlike any experience I ever had. Overall, true blessing. I loved every second of it. I mean, was I working hard? Absolutely.
You were sweating, dude. Like, you were sweating, dude. You looked gassed. Like, I was like, dude, he looked beat up at the end of this show.
To keep that enthusiasm going for hours at a time, it was like 3 or 4 days in a row, a pause, and then the main day. To answer your question about losing my voice, did it happen? Yeah, it did. I had found like a cafe. I was able to walk to it in Salt Lake City downtown, which everything's beautiful there, and especially in December.
It was cool. There was snow, but it wasn't like irritating snow that was ruining everything. It was just the right amount to where it looked beautiful. Yeah.
It's gorgeous. So to enable to preserve or fix your voice, the best thing to do is get lemon tea, mix it with some honey, maybe a little bit of lemon juice, and just drink that and drink that and drink that. And that's what I did.
Nice.
And so, did it help? Yeah. And then come game time, you just don't even think about it. But yeah, that last day, my voice was hurting. And I was thinking, oh no, what am I going to do? On the big day, the final where everybody dresses up and I had to get my tuxedo and, do my catchphrase and get in the ring and make it feel like it was a real special, time.
Right.
The voice was gone. But that's a part of the game. No complaints. I mean, that's what I signed up for. And since then, I've learned a lot, speak the devil. I mean, this is coconut water. I never had tried this before.
Oh, the Goya coconut water. Yeah, the carton of coconut water. Yeah.
I learned it. Just being a ring announcer,
Nice.
it keeps me hydrated and that and, a couple other things. But yeah, was I a little bit nervous about that? Yeah, I was, but it all turned out okay. And it was a great experience overall. A lot of those guys that won are competing in the Olympics right now.
Yeah, exactly. That's what I was going to say. That there's a handful of folks that you have to run through there. That's USA Boxing. That is the sanctioning body of amateur boxing, and that's how you get your way into the Olympic teams and stuff. So, yeah, it's great. It's very cool. And I'm glad that also opened more doors for you, right?
Oh, it did.
Yeah.
So So blessed to have those kids. For sure.
Yeah, I can't even see. I mean, there's just been so many. Every time I open up your Facebook or your Instagram or whatever, and it's just that. Yeah, I just see you're somewhere else in another city announcing another event. So that's really cool, man.
Yeah, it's fun. I love it.
So that's all your work stuff. Let's maybe talk as you being a fight fan, because I have a handful of friends that are into boxing as much as I am. I have very few that are into it more than I am. You are definitely one of them. And so I always love hearing what you think about this fight coming up and all these kinds of things. What do you think just generally right now about the current state of boxing? Because you've seen boxing through several eras, right? We're not young whippersnappers, So what about boxing now? What do you think?
I think it's great. With the apps now that are taking off, you've got DAZN and ESPN Plus, Fight TV,
Fight TV and Showtime, Showbox, right?
Yeah, that as well. There's so many other ways to get exposure, including myself. Whereas in the past it was just it was on TV, and if you weren't on TV, that was it. But that's helping other fighters. People can follow their favorite fighters more. If I want to watch somebody that I've announced for in South Texas fight in Florida, I can watch it because I get this app or that app. I think that the pound for pound list right now is super competitive. I mean, I could take, 5 different boxing experts and they could have completely different lists, and that's okay with me. I mean, right now, it's like how your top 10 pound for pound, as far as who you think is number one. You got Canelo up there, you got Enyal, you've got Triple G up there, Terence Crawford, Tyson Fury, Errol Spence, Teofimo Lopez. I could go on and on. Caleb Plant is knocking at the door. Just so many. Gervonta Davis, good fighters right now is awesome. It's like that's what makes the sport healthier compared to the same guy or guys year after year. But I mean, I really don't know who the top 5 pound for pound fighters are, or even the true heavyweight champion
right.
At this time. So, I mean, how healthy is that? How awesome is that? We've gone through eras where there was a dominant champion, and he was so dominant that I think the public may have lost interest. Not to his fault, of course.
Right.
Can't blame the guy. It's a couple of names or something I want to say, but we just kind of like, well, he's going to win every time. Now, with it being so competitive. So to answer your question, I think the state of boxing is as good as it's ever been.
Yeah, I'm with you. With the multiple kind of platforms you can access boxing, that's the thing. It used to be just HBO and just buying the pay-per-view, and that's the only way you got big fights. And it's like, okay, well, now we got HBO, now we got Showtime, now we got, again, DAZN, we got different promotions, we got Triller going on, doing these weird hybrid events, which I actually think are interesting. We got the exhibition fights, right? Even going into the types of fights we're getting are different. Even BKFC, right? There's pro boxers that end up there now, right? And so it still becomes part of the boxing landscape. Yeah, I just think that the accessibility is really cool as a fight fan. It's just there's always fights going on, and you can get them pretty easily now.
There's only one thing I would like to add that I would like to see. I would like to see pro boxing on network television.
Yes.
Not everybody has cable. Not everybody can spend $13 a month on these apps. I mean, it's great that for those that can, I love it, but not everybody has the resources and big families and things of that nature. Look at NBA, NFL.
Makes sense.
MLB. I mean, when little Jimmy is bored on a Saturday afternoon and just turns on the TV, what's he going to develop a passion for growing up in his life? And that's what you see. That's what obviously is going to captivate the public's interest, and it has in the past. Not recently. I just wish that if NBC, ABC, CBS, those channels, Fox, there's Fox Sports, but if we could get it on to where more audiences can be reached, for as good as it's doing, it can be better, is what I'm trying to say.
Oh, yeah, sure. Yeah, it's been, decades now since it's been on just normal network television. It's been even, ages since it's been on cable, right? And so, yeah, it's that's one of those things that what if it did have the viewership of a whatever Sunday football game? Now, I'm not saying a big ass fucking division final or something. No, like just a whatever football game on a Sunday. Like if we had that many eyes on boxing, that'd be good all around, right? But I hear you.
I mean, can you imagine if Deontay Wilder versus Tyson Fury was available on CBS and
Right.
not pay-per-view to where you had to pay $75?
There's way to some people will say, well, the money. I was like, well, there's ways to recoup the revenue through
Yeah.
advertising because you throw commercials on there. I mean, you put commercials on there. We already put up with fucking commercials anyway, right? And so, yeah, I think there's ways for that to be done. I wanted to ask you some thoughts of some boxers, and we could go on forever doing this. And I almost thought about doing it like that word association stuff. Like I say a boxer, you say the first thing that comes to your mind, kind of thing. But yeah, I just want to throw some names out there. We'll start like in the past, and I have a few in the current. Big name, Mike Tyson. What do you think about Mike Tyson, man? You a Tyson fan?
Great fighter. I wish that if I can honestly say that if he didn't have demons, greatest heavyweight of all time.
Yeah. That's not a lot of people could make a good argument against that. I think yeah, sure. Just if he was around more during the prime of his life, if he had the right people around him, a million things. Yeah, one of the best, but the potential that was like, I was like, yeah, he was one of the best, but there's so much potential lost still.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
He was so great. But if Customato maybe didn't die at that time, that young in his life, I think that he could have gone. Is he the greatest heavyweight champion of all time? No, but he could have been.
Yeah.
If I mean, we all know his. I mean, even people don't even watch boxing know what his demons were.
Sure.
But ultimately, love him or hate him, you're interested in him, whether you admit it or not.
He's intriguing.
I mean, whether you're a sports fan, a boxing fan.
He's one of the few that leaves the boxing world and is known, super known, worldwide, across.
All over.
Yeah.
All over. So, yeah, to answer the question about Mike, great, but could have been greater. And hopefully his life is he seems like he's much more at peace now.
Yeah, I think he's a lot healthier now. Yeah, mind-wise, yeah.
And so hopefully that continues for him.
For sure. Another one. What about Johnny Tapia?
Mi vida loca.
Vida loca.
As you know, a lot of people may or may not know, last Saturday I announced for his wife in Mescalero, New Mexico. And I announced for his son making his amateur debut, Johnny Tapia Jr.
Very cool.
That story is just amazing. It's sad, if you know it, about what happened to Johnny so young. It's like when you hear what happened to him, your heart just bleeds about, unfortunately losing his mother at age 8, not having really a father, all the hardships that he had to go through. It tugs at your heart. And Johnny was actually such a good person. He had a big heart, especially all that he'd been through. Great lightweight, did so much for the people of New Mexico and the boxing scene in New Mexico, fought hard to better his life, better his family's life. He just had this gigante corazón, and he, cared so much for his wife, Teresa, who's my promoter.
Nice,
and
great.
They treated me like family. I got to meet a lot of his family, and it was an honor and a pleasure to be the announcer for their promotion. To answer your question, tragic.
For sure.
I didn't want him to die. It's what that hurt, but what a triumphant story as far as becoming world champion and exercising those demons and defeating a lot of them. But at the same time, very sad when you hear what the poor guy had to go through as a child.
Yeah.
And I'm happy for the success that he's had, and I'm privileged to be the voice of the promotion, and I get to see what his sons. I'm hoping they have the same success.
Yeah, I mentioned him because he was one of my favorite HBO boxers in that era, and just always exciting to watch. And my dad made me, like, we're parking our asses on the couch, and we're going to watch this fight, and
You'll
always
be from
exciting.
a
And I loved the way he talked. I loved the way he was authentic post fight. And I love New Mexican fighters. I love New Mexican. New Mexico breeds a lot of good boxers and MMA fighters. So I mentioned him because he's a personal favorite.
Well, y'all being from El Paso, I can only imagine
Yeah.
how. I mean, y'all probably love him all the more. And like you said, he was so real and he was so himself. And I mean, I hope he's found peace. Upstairs.
Yeah, on the other side, sure. Yeah.
And he should. I will say he should be very proud. I mean, his son who made his debut, so down to earth, so kind, no attitude whatsoever. Takes the time to talk to everybody, and really a good kid. And I was proud to be the announcer for him this past Saturday.
Very cool, man. Very cool. Here's another classic. Pernell Whitaker.
Widely considered the best defensive fighter of all time.
Right.
I could remember, being 14, 15, living in San Antonio when he had his fight with Chavez and everybody saying that he got robbed. I really didn't know that much about boxing back then, but that's basically what I heard. And he also had his demons. I think he had a pretty bad drug problem, and it was very sad how he got recently, about a year or two ago, he got hit by a car and sadly died. I will confess, he's one that I didn't know that much about, but obviously great fighter.
No, yeah, and you mentioned the one fight that I remember, the Chavez fight, and then a month or two ago, somebody had mentioned him, and I went on a deep dive on some of it, and yeah, he was a very interesting, slippery defensive fighter. Very cool to see him in some other fights with again, unfamiliar faces rather than the big Chavez one he's known for.
Yeah.
Oscar De La Hoya.
Oscar is great fighter, fought the best, very well spoken, great ambassador for boxing. His pay-per-view sales and the revenue that he's generated has just been like amazing.
Yeah,
fought the best. I get very defensive about Oscar because some people say, "Oh, he lost to this guy or that guy." Well, he fought the best fighters.
His resume is unbelievable.
Yes, it is. You look at who he beat. Pernell Whitaker beat Fernando Vargas. Vargas was, in his prime. Jesse James Leija, Ike Partey. He tried to go up in weight with Hopkins. That was a mistake, but props to him for trying.
Yeah.
He lost split decision to Floyd Mayweather. That is the closest anybody has come. Now, as far as him now.
Yeah.
As you might have seen, there was a Triller pay-per-view.
Yes.
And it was the Askren Jake Paul.
Correct.
Interview. And he was asked to commentate. And he was intoxicated.
Yep.
And I really didn't like people all over social media making jokes about it. It's not funny.
Well, maybe it was sad to me. That was my thing. I was like, nobody in the production is saying, maybe this is not a good idea. Maybe we do a quick spot with him that we pre-record and we edit it nice and we put it on the screen. Something. Like, they weren't thinking, he has his own shit. Really intense stuff, Actually heard him on Hot Boxing with Mike Tyson. He gets into a lot of his childhood, a lot of trauma, And it was sad to see for me. And so I don't like people cracking on him,
Yeah, exactly. It was sad. Now, as far as his comeback, I've got kind of a interesting take on this.
You're talking about the Vitor Belfort fight. Tell me.
Okay. Now, Oscar deserved to go out better than what happened in December of 2008 with Manny Pacquiao. He was soundly defeated by a prime Manny Pacquiao. And for all that he's done for the sport, he deserved to go out better. So he needs to, I believe that he deserves to give a lasting impression on the fans, on the public, on the people. So that's why I support it. And then I don't support it. Here I am, a politician. Because, well, from what we've seen recently, as far as his mental health and what we saw happen on Triller, and, things have been rumored that he's had substance abuse problems. Vitor Belfort is no joke. I know it's in boxing, but Vitor Belfort, he's no joke. I heard this is not an exhibition.
Right.
This is a real fight. I don't want to see Oscar hurt.
Right.
But if you're going to ask me, are you going to be watching? Of course I am. I'm a fan. Of course I am. I can't turn away. I call it car wreck syndrome. You just can't stop watching. And so I wish Oscar the best. And I hope that, he's especially kicked his demons for training, because this is not going to be, no joke. I mean, he obviously knows how, ever since he won the gold medal in 1992 and became world champion, I think 6 times.
Yeah.
And so he knows what he's doing. But at the same time, I don't want to see him get hurt in there. So hopefully this is one excellent showing for him. And, he gets his stuff together and he goes back to promoting for Golden Boy.
Yeah, I hope it's a good show and a good production, and that he doesn't get hurt. That's the thing, because I actually liked how the Mike Tyson and Roy Jones exhibition ended up. I thought that was a good product. I actually thought that was really cool. I thought it was a good fight. I thought it was nice, and nobody got hurt, and they didn't need to, And some people wanted to see a knockout. I was like, we've seen these guys get knocked out. We've seen them knock people out. Let's see these guys show us what they can still do. And they put on a good show, I thought.
Well, they both deserve the payday for all they've given.
Yeah.
And my respect to both of them, you can't help but love Roy. Roy
is so great. He's so great.
And a country boy from Florida. And I mean, that charm that he has. And so I thought it was great for both of them. I ordered it. Didn't really care for Snoop Dogg's commentary.
Sure.
Half the people loved it. Half the people hated it. I didn't like it. I thought him saying something like, just like my 2 drunk uncles fighting at a barbecue. It's like, man, come on. I'm trying to, to me, this is like royalty, man. It's like, I'm like,
yeah.
Saying something like that is like, okay, comedy show, but love Snoop Dogg as a rapper.
Right. And that's my thing. I was like, have him host, open the show, do a musical thing. Awesome. I was like, get real people that are going to announce and make it look like a real production. And I like the punctuating it with musical acts. Some people hate that. I was like, it's a new age, y'all. It's different now. And I don't even know half these. I'm old now. I don't know these people. And so, but again, that the commentary I thought could be more professional for sure. For sure.
Yeah.
Let's talk heavyweights. Tyson Fury.
I can honestly say that if he is focused and he doesn't have any of his, partying ways, I don't see any heavyweight in boxing history that could beat a 6'9", focused, amazing boxer, Tyson Fury, if he is focused.
Right.
I love his story. Can't help but love the guy. But kind of like his brother said, he doesn't get any sympathy from me. He's chosen those things, and then he goes, oh, I want to talk about my mental health. And, I mean, that's cool. It helps people, I think, to an extent. But, I mean, shut up. I mean, stop blaming all of that.
Well, because because it seems like he's overcome the worst of it, and you're riding this high. You are a champion. He did, again, that comeback, and he was going to kill himself. Like, he was so dark and drinking himself, and he was so ridiculously overweight and stuff, and came back from that. Like, dude, you are mentally strong. We know you are. You have proven it. What about Wilder? Deontay Wilder. I see your shirt. I see your shirt. It says Wilder on it. Tell me, Deontay Wilder.
Okay, well, just to let everybody know, the previous weekend I announced pro boxing in North Alabama, and his two promoters, JD's and Malik Scott, were there,
Okay.
and both so nice and posing for pictures with the fans, such positive attitudes. When I asked Malik if did Fury really have COVID, his response was the F word, no.
Oh no.
Very emphatically, fuck no. So that was kind of funny. It's a good question. As far as how I feel about Wilder, there is one thing that I hate about pro boxing. There's too much negativity in it. Deontay Wilder has one of the largest KO percentages, if not the, like 96% or something.
Right.
His pro record is like what, 35-1 or 41, or here he lost one fight. And so all of these boxing experts jump on the, oh, he sucks, oh, he can't box, oh, he got his ass whipped. Come on, man. Okay.
All the greats have lost once or twice or three or four times. Again, Ali, Lennox Lewis, Tyson, De La Hoya, Chavez. Everybody has a few,
Yeah. And he lost to a guy who's undefeated. And in their first fight, referee Jack Reese could have just as easily counted Fury out in that 12th round as he didn't.
Right.
That was 50-50 thing.
Yeah.
I wanted to defend Deontay. He's a good person. His father's a pastor. He's a dedicated father. Deontay Wilder, that's one thing I hate about boxing is when everybody jumps on that bandwagon and 99.9999999% of anybody that said anything negative could not even begin to do what he's done.
Yeah.
I want to make a prediction if that's okay.
Go for it.
Deontay Wilder wins 6-round TKO.
We heard it here first.
I think Fury is going back to his old ways. I don't believe that he had COVID. Okay. If y'all remember, in 2015, he upset Vladimir Klitschko, and they had 2 scheduled rematches that Fury had pulled out of because he was doing what he was doing. And I predict that that's what he's doing right now. I'm even a little curious if October 9th is going to happen. I want to go to Vegas and be there because I am Team Wilder, but I am predicting a very big upset. I don't think Wilder, I've seen his training videos. I know how he's just obsessed with getting revenge. And so, a lot of people are predicting the same thing's going to happen. But I can honestly say I think that Wilder is going to be coming as a man possessed, and he's going to score a TKO in the mid-rounds, and it's going to shock the world.
Awesome, man. I like that prediction. Yeah, I like a bold prediction. Hell yeah. But I'm looking forward to that. Yeah, and I'm just crossing my fingers that October comes and it goes off without a hitch. And so you are involved in the fight world in several areas of it, boxing, MMA, pro wrestling, always behind the microphone. Have you ever put on some gloves, done some boxing training or any MMA training or anything like that? Ever do anything outside of the announcing?
Yeah, I used to be a red belt in Taekwondo.
Oh, cool.
And I used to really like that. Stan Singleton in San Antonio, Texas, Southwest Karate Institute. I really learned a lot. I started moving around after that. That's no excuse. And then, I'm planning on it getting back. So many things that are positive that come as a result of boxing and martial arts. And so I want to get back into it. But yeah, it was a while back.
Yeah, I hear you.
Had a couple of years, but as far as like practicing it now, I hate to say it, but no.
And so the other part of the podcast is the writing part, writers and fighters. You spoke a lot to the fighting aspect of it, but do you do any reading and writing?
Well, the part of the reason why I got involved was about 2003. I started writing for FightNews.com.
Okay.
And I was the correspondent in San Antonio. And the irony with that is I like to tell people this. The first person involved in boxing that I got to interview was Oscar De La Hoya.
Jesus, dude.
It was right when we started Golden Boy and Jesse James Lejon was headlining in San Antonio. And my editor was like, Flat Top, rest in peace. He was like, I want you to interview Oscar De La Hoya. And I'm like, and so, yeah, I was downtown San Antonio. I still remember it and how nervous I was. And just by that gig, I worked it for about almost 9 years off and on. And sometimes it would be one gig a year, or sometimes it would be 3 a month. It would just depend on the scene was hot or not. But I mean, I got to interview Oscar De La Hoya, Julio Cesar Chavez, his son, Manny Pacquiao, Duva, Jesus Chavez, John Duddy, Jesse James Leija, Orlando Canizales. I mean, a lot of big names where I was like, whoa, this is...
No, that's crazy, dude. That's awesome.
Yeah, but I don't do it anymore.
Oh,
I will actually, I'll send in, like, to help promo the event occasionally, but not like I used to.
Wow, dude. No, that's really cool. That's really cool. Yeah, you've had lots of entry points into this world. It's great, man. And so, how do people keep up with Christian Schmidt, the ring announcer, on like social media, and maybe do you even have like booking info for people? How can they get in contact with you, and how can they follow you?
Just find me on Facebook. I'm not advanced yet for Twitter and Instagram. I guess I got to talk to my nieces. They're teenagers, and maybe TikTok.
Make one of your teenage nieces be your social media manager.
Yeah.
You know,
I think I need to do that. But I really do. I need to get my own business page as far as being Christian Schmidt ring announcer, and everything, whether you like it or not, everything is social media these days.
No, yeah. We'll definitely direct people to your Facebook and stuff, man. But hey, it was a really good talk. Always good to talk boxing. I'm glad the audience got to hear a little bit about the game you're in, the prep you take to give us that adrenaline rush right before that bell rings, man. So I enjoyed this.
Well, I enjoyed it immensely, AJ. Thanks so much. And as a referee, you do a great job. And I miss seeing you a referee out there in the ring. And like I said, as soon as I knew, I mean, guy, college professor like you, I knew when you told me about this was going to be a big success. So I'm just excited that you chose me. And if you ever want to do it again, I will be back like that. So thank you so much.
No, hell yeah, man. No, I appreciate the support of the podcast and you saying I'm a good independent pro wrestling referee. I take pride in that. So yeah, whenever I go to an indie show, I take my ref gig bag in the trunk in case they need somebody. So
well, absolutely, man. If you ever need a reference, man, I'll be happy to be one because you do a heck of a good job. You take it seriously, and you do a great job. So, yeah, definitely.
Oh, I appreciate it, man. Appreciate it. And, yeah, again, get some more gigs. Get some exciting stuff going on. We'll have you back on, dude.
Yeah, man. I would love to do it. So, Riders and Fighters, baby.
Here we are. Take care, bud. All right, y'all. Thanks for listening to that interview with Christian Schmidt, ring announcer working out of Laredo, Texas. He does announcing for boxing, MMA, pro wrestling, and more. And he's a friend and somebody that I respect. I respect his experience and all the work he's done to get to where he is. I respect his opinions about boxing. He's such a fan. If you want to keep up with Christian, follow him on Facebook. You can type in Christian Schmidt and look for the ring announcer dude, or you can follow the link that's going to be on the website in the show notes in the description of this. As far as the podcast, you guys know the drill. Make sure you're subscribed. Make sure you follow on social media. If you guys have a particular episode that you like, share it. Share it with a friend. You guys want to stay tuned because next week I have a familiar face, or I should say voice, from the pro wrestling world, Luis Spartan Ramirez, pro wrestler and head trainer, coach of 5-Star Wrestling in Laredo, Texas. That's going to be a fun one. He was on episode 1, so make sure you're subscribed. You'll get the alert when that drops next week. Aside from that, be good, be safe, take care of each other.